Hello, and welcome to the third episode of Entrepreneur Arts. Today we have a very special guest, Trish Classé Gianakis. Her innovative artworks have gained international recognition, blending technology with physical artworks and augmented reality to express themes of gratitude, rage, and love. Additionally, she won an Emmy Award for on-air graphics created for an NBC documentary, and her expertise in user experience design has led her to work with renowned companies like Major League Baseball, AMC, and major artists like Elton John and Queen Latifah. Trish was selected as artisan in residence through Creative Rebuild New York at BronxNet TV. She currently is a professor at St. Peter's University in Jersey City. Trish, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. You did some residency at BronxNet.
Yes, it was amazing. I was awarded a 2-year residency through Creatives Rebuild New York. I had to move back into my parents' house on the Upper East Side. So I became a New York resident for 2 years. And I created some NFTs to raise money for them. I created an NFT Explore the Bronx project, famous people from the Bronx. So the Piccielli brothers who did the Patient Lions and the Lincoln Memorial. I also did a tribute to hip hop with the forefathers of hip hop, the elements of hip hop. I did some NFT drops of Cardi B. And this was all to help raise money. And then we shifted gears from that, and I started creating immersive set design. But some examples is here's an example. One of the set designs I did was Windows of the Bronx, which was inspired by the new building I helped design the equipment for, the immersive equipment for the classes they'd be teaching. So BronxNet TV built a whole new immersive technology center in the South Bronx, and it was all the windows facing the subway systems. So it was just kind of like I wanted that feeling. So I did some sketches, got it approved. It's an immersive studio that's floating above the Bronx, and there's the studio there. You can also see a fire pit seating area, and then there's a stage off to the other side where I have an avatar dancing on this hip hop stage where she's dancing. I also combine using artificial intelligence to do the backgrounds, and I also used AI to help me with my creative process because I had to produce 8 VR sets in Unreal Engine to use for their television programming, where they had a full immersive green screen studio, and we could just drop the set in using their editing switch bay, and the whole editing suite with the raw system that they were using had digital cameras that could change the camera angles while the people were in front of that green screen, and it actually looked like you were on a set. So this is one of the hosts for a segment that I worked on for Halloween, and this is another VR set.
That's really neat.
I did a hip hop set as well.
That's fun.
And we did the 50 years of hip hop celebration in this. And then here's a sci-fi. This was used for the Eco Leaders, so we had 10 artists at the BronxNet TV. And 4 of the artists were puppeteers that worked with Jim Henson. Here's the last one, which you saw. This is the inside of that other set design that we were looking at first. This is the Windows of the Bronx. So it was so exciting. I had so much fun working on these sets. And I don't know if they're using them now because I finished the residency. I haven't checked in lately, so I'm not sure where they're at with using the set designs I created for them. But the intention is so that the producers for the different segments, they could upload these sets into their backgrounds. And I set it up so that they could change certain aspects of them too. So they had some control over it, and it was all using Unreal Engine 4.7. We couldn't use the newest version of Unreal Engine 5 because the raw system, it's a German video editing system that only worked with Unreal 4.7. So it was interesting. Learned a lot.
When I met you, you were working in a medical ad space. Most people wonder how artists make the transition into technology, digital art, and extended reality. Before you started this quest for innovation, what made you decide to start a career as an artist?
Well, I've always known that I wanted to be an artist. My mother was an artist, and she raised me with painting. You could say, instead of putting me in daycare, she put me in the back room of the gallery she was running on Long Island and give me paints, and I would just paint. So that became my outlet and my release for just whenever I was alone or bored, I'd always just draw or do art. So that's how you could say I got started. Here is my installation that I created while I was in the MFA program for computer art at SVA. And my final thesis project was a virtual reality installation that you would walk through. And as you walked through, audio and video would be triggered. But basically, the installation took me 2 years to build. It had to be all original photography, audio, video. And basically, I used pressure sensors that they would have in the buses to make the bus stop. And I created a blueprint on the floor of a house and with guided scrims. And I had projections that as you walked through the blueprint, the stills would trigger different rooms, and then audio and video would play in the windows and the doorways of this abandoned house. And the house was an adobe house that I had taken photography of in Arizona and then brought that with me to New York. I didn't know at the time it was going to be my thesis project. So it's interesting how life changes. But my installation, the virtual reality installation, was one of the first in 1999 in New York City.
Oh, nice. So what made you decide to incorporate AI, virtual reality, and augmented reality into your physical work?
Well, my major was computer art installation at SVA. So I really was fascinated with Bill Viola and Tony Ursula. They were my influences. And I just loved that integration. And I created my first piece after becoming a professional artist. And it was Don't Touch Me There. And it's an installation that is combining Raku with a old-fashioned peep show box. And I I had breast cancer, and it showed in the peephole my reconstruction of my surgery from breast cancer. But you'd have to look in the peephole to see those stills that are showing right there. And I took a photo of myself every week for a year. So
Interesting.
that's
So this is a more recent work, or
this was 2018, 2019 Electronic Encounters at the Alumni Art Exhibition in Chelsea, New York.
so what was it like running your own design agency?
It was very exciting. I had a goal. I was driven, which you have to be. Major League Baseball gave me some great opportunities. But prior to MLB, I actually started my agency in 2000, where I had clients like Saks Fifth Avenue. I did work with NASCAR, Sony, Sci-Fi Channel. I was doing all their upfronts, and then worked with a lot of, Garth Brooks, the Grammys. And of course, MLB had the sports part of that component. I worked on the Giants' first website, and it was so exciting because I got to work on shows like Walking Dead or Mad Men or Breaking Bad. And it was a high pace situation. I was working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. I had people working for me from India to California to New York. And it was a very fast pace. And at the height of my running my agencies when I came down with cancer, so I decided to focus on becoming an artist and switching from running an agency. And teaching is what I prefer to do, is my art and teach. And that's where I shifted my gears in 2016.
So were you working through other agencies and then just decided to dedicate yourself to teaching rather than working through all these other agencies?
Well, my own agency was Classy Design, where I had all these clients. The companies I worked for were MLB.com, and I worked as a creative director at a couple other companies doing pharma. But when I became more active with Classy Design, I became agency of record for Bayer Consumer Healthcare, all the AMC network shows and Sundance Channel shows, Saks Fifth Avenue as well. So it's what you're seeing on the screen is a mix of my own accounts and accounts I've worked on through other agencies.
So after graduate school, you managed to work for many companies, including Major League Baseball, and manage your own design agency at some point. What were some of the most exciting and challenging projects you got to work on?
Well, while I was at Major League Baseball, I was part of the startup team, and there were only 65 of us in one room in the Chelsea Market building. We were in the basement. And we had to win over all the team owners. So it was MLB.com run by the teams. So we had to win them over to sign up with us. And we grew that business from 68 people to 407, all team sites. I helped manage and brand MLB.com, as well as helped the innovation of MLB TV streaming video, live video for their games, and game day audio for live audio streams. And we brought that internationally to Japan, as well as games. I would create games and work on all the sponsorship opportunities. I was managing that as well. So it was a very exciting time. And then I had some really exciting projects with Bear, my client Bear, and I got to work with Alexa Mead, who was a famous artist. And that was in 2018. We created a augmented reality activation program for Bear Aspirin to know your heart attack risk. That was very exciting too. Not many people were using augmented reality at the time. We did a pop-up in the Oculus in New York City. Oculus had just opened as the new hub for the PATH trains and General Square trains. And then it has all these shops, and it's a beautiful architecture, the kind of wings, commemorating 9/11, because it's also built on that site. But it was really an amazing pop-up. We got a lot of news press and gave good brand awareness for Bear Aspirin.
Great.
So it's two spectrums, entertainment to pharma.
Excellent, excellent. So on top of your professional career, you managed to raise a family and continue to pursue your own personal work. What was that like, and how did you manage to keep creating exhibits, sculptures, and installations while doing all this agency work on top of that?
Well, the agency work took a back seat. I mean, my fine art took a back seat. I still was working in clay and ceramics, so I would do private projects with people. This is an example of the Virginia project that I worked on, and this is kind of the beginning of my art career. But as far as my fine art, it literally took a backseat to the agency work I was doing because I was working so many hours. And I could only take care of my family and run the company and do the work. So I didn't have time for my art. And I literally was going to give up on my art. But I think that when I came down with cancer, it kind of like put a stop to that and really helped me refocus on what was important to me and living in the now.
So would you say just some life-changing events allowed you to sort of take some time again to work on your own creative work and do less of the agency work and focus on teaching as well?
Yes, I think it was definitely a life-changing event when you're confronted with mortality and you really have to decide what's important to you in life. It was a really easy decision for me to make to just start doing my art again because I realized that's what I was here for and to teach.
What sort of projects have you worked on more recently after you got out of the design agency work and worked on your own work here?
Well, I started incorporating NFTs into my art, animating my art. In 2021, I started minting NFTs. This is a commission that I did for a day spa in Summit, New Jersey. They commissioned two paintings and then I minted it as an NFT. And this piece has traveled. It's been in Times Square, New York. It was also in a virtual VR gallery, Verbella. I was the artist in residence there in the VR campus. And last year it was at NFT NYC, where it was in the artist gallery and it was also on the general admission tickets. So that was kind of exciting. But I really had a passion for creating augmented reality experiences and incorporating my art. So this is an example. I created this Raku series called Caged, I also wrote a haiku with it, and it's been published as well. I wrote a poem as well to go with it, the haiku poem. And off to the left, you can see a woman wearing my art. So I made an augmented reality filter of my Raku sculpture and added some 3D graphics and particles of the animation. And if the person scanned the QR code, they could put the artwork on their face and position themselves with the pieces and be part of the art. And that became an exciting transformation for me. I also created a series called Me Too, where I have this sculpture that my work, it resides in my emotions. So that's how I am inspired to create these pieces. This piece was broken by someone, and I was so enraged by it. I created an augmented reality filter of the sculpture, and I challenged 100 people to wear my art. And it was my Wear My Art project, Me Too. And that was in 2019, right before we closed down for COVID.
Okay.
So occasionally I do take on special clients. I worked on a project for Ever Smart City, which was a platform that was minted on the blockchain as well. I did some branding for them and created an immersive world for them. And Ever Smart City, the concept was a commercial retail space with residential living that was sustainable, where when you lived there, you were owned part of the NFT of the Ever Smart City location, which was kind of interesting. Here's another example of how I integrated my artwork with augmented reality. Here is the woman holding her phone up, doing a selfie, and she's wearing my sculpture over her face, and the sculptures are right there in front of her as well. And here's another example of somebody wearing the sculpture, how it would appear on your face. That was a 14C art fair in Jersey City. Here's some more examples, augmented reality. I was using Spark AR for a long time and teaching it, but now Meta has discontinued Spark AR. So now when I teach augmented reality, I use Lens Studio from Snapchat, and I'm also teaching augmented reality with Zapbox, which is a proprietary software that you can upload on your phone, but they also offer a editing suite, which I pay for seats, and then I have these cradles for the phone to sit into when you want to launch the experiences, so that the students have more of an affordable way of mixed reality. Rather than paying $500 for a headset, we're supplying them. This headsets cost me $70, the cradles to hold your phone, and then they adapt the VR programs like Multibrush onto their platform that you can download on the phone. So it's definitely more affordable. It's very exciting. A lot of universities are using that because it's just more affordable. I've also built several worlds in spatial. I built a bunch of and curated exhibits with searchlight.art. And this is a show that I helped build in Spatial. And Spatial is a great platform for virtual reality. I really enjoy it, but it also has an augmented reality factor to it.
Where can people see your artwork right now? Where is it exhibiting right now?
Well, I do have most of my work online. I have a QR code that people can scan as well to see some of the work. And right now I'm just kind of taking a back seat to my exhibitions because I have been granted a new studio space at St. Peter's University that I'm setting up. I'm setting a virtual reality lab as well as mixed reality lab for the students because I'm revamping the curriculum for the fine arts department, bringing them more up to date with immersive technologies so the students can learn tools to make themselves more marketable in the design and art world today.
So thanks everyone for watching another episode of Entrepreneur Arts. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Trish.